So, the Citroen C6. Why on earth have I bought one of these potentially wallet-crippling Luxo barges when I already have a hydraulic liability in the garage already? Well, aside from making you look a bit of a French assassin, that is a very good question. Kelly's a big old thing, huh? Why the C6? Why do I have this affinity with it? I went to university in Paris between like 2010 and 2012, spent some time over there, and that time period these things were absolutely everywhere. Considering they only made, like, I believe about 20,000, I can only assume most of them were bought by either the French government or civil service, because yeah, certain areas of Paris you just see like a queue of these on the road waiting to whisk whoever away. And they always had this like sense of mystique about them, weirdly, in a way that not a lot of other things did. Every time you saw one on the road, you were a bit like, I wonder who's in that, you know? In reality, it was probably a junior minister for agriculture or a middling police detective or something. But yeah, from that point on, these had me really, and always wanted one, so thought I would give it a go. So, what exactly is this model then? In some ways, I've copped out a little bit in terms of spec and played it safe, arguably, because this is the 2.2 litre 4-cylinder turbo diesel, which, in terms of the engine choice, was bottom of the range, really. There was also a 2.7 diesel, which has not the best reputation for reliability. They also did a later 3 litre diesel with more power, as well as a 3 litre petrol. It has the sloshy 6-speed automatic gearbox. The 2.2 was the only model that was available as a manual, but I didn't want a manual. This isn't the kind of car for a manual box, really. It's just a big, comfortable waft machine that you put as little effort as possible into driving, and in that sense it does the job very well. This is the last proper hydraulic Citroen, really. It's the last big car they made with the famous hydropneumatic suspension that goes back way back to the 50s, and obviously the traction Avant and the DS. It's an absolutely fantastic car on the motorways. This, I've not had something that's just as quiet and comfortable as a cruiser as this car is. But in other ways, I'll be a bit controversial, and I'll say the suspension on a road like we're on right now, which is like a rough British B road, it's not the best. It's not the best. It's a bit twitchy, it's a bit fiddly, it doesn't quite know what to do, really. I mean, it's really good at kind of, well, it's a self-leveling suspension, so keeping itself level, very good at that. But when it comes to like potholes and like even cat's eyes, it just gets a bit crashy, really. So yeah, that's not to say at all this isn't a supremely comfortable car, because it really is. I mean, you sit in these huge leather armchairs, it's a bit like just being in your lounge, really. Everything is very light to the touch. The steering is, well, it's certainly not a driver's car. There's not a lot of feedback, but saying that, you know, it's a proper hydraulic system, so it's not like some of these modern cars with you know, an electric power steering setup that just completely lack feel, like I imagine most newer Citroens do. It's just a lovely wafty place to spend time, particularly, like I say, on a motorway rather than kind of darting and diving on B roads. Power? Well, it has some. This is, as I said, the 2.2. There was no quick car in the C6 range, really. I think even the 3 litre petrol was about 9 point something seconds to 60, and this is, yeah, you know, it's 11.6 seconds, I think, from 0 to 62 miles an hour, which for something that was competing against, you know, the likes of Mercedes E-Class and Lexus and various other rivals, it just wasn't really enough, really. But sometimes and especially with a car like this and the kind of lineage it has, it's not about. It was never about speed with this car, and it's just a car that, despite its somewhat clattery diesel engine, it just makes you feel special, really. Every single journey is a bit of an event, you know, and there's not that many cars that were competing with this that you can say that about, really. For its day, the spec list on this car is pretty impressive, really. I've got a head-up display, I've got directional headlights, which, yeah, I know, that came out in 1967 on the DS, but all the same, you know, it still wasn't exactly widely featured in 2006 by other makes and models. I've got auto-dipping mirrors all round that are monochrome or whatever you call it. I've got a blind in the back, I've got double glazing. Yeah, it's just a lovely place to do long journeys in, and, you know, cover motorway miles with absolute ease. Quality, it's a bit of a mixed bag, really. You've got this, it's not terrible, the kind of plastic they've used on the dashboard and the steering wheel, but then you kind of realise, oh, it's the same material that they were using in like the C3 Picasso and stuff, and it just takes the edge off, really, for what should be a really luxurious car. It's not, you know, it might compete with an E-Class for ride comfort, but in terms of quality, you know, Citroen have never managed to attain that level, really. It's the same story with the indicator stalks as well, because it quickly becomes apparent these are exactly the same stalks you'd find, or I did find, in my dad's like 2003 Citroen C3, which again, it just, you know, it's low budget. The interesting thing is, I have realised they've kind of changed the damping on the stalks themselves to make it a little bit softer. So they've changed like the actual mechanism, but then they just left the stalk, and it's like, surely if you're spending money on, you know, dampening your indicator stalk, you should change the design of it too. But, you know, hey ho, Citroen in the mid-noughties. This has quite an impressive, for its day, infotainment system. The only detracting factor is, these days everyone goes on about touchscreens and how, you know, they're not user friendly, they can even be kind of dangerous. Well, the only other way to kind of fit a lot of technology into a small space is with this, which is, you know, there's more buttons than the Starship Enterprise down there, really. And after 3 months, I'm not entirely sure what they all do still. So yeah, that's a bit of a faff, really, is that, to get used to. So yeah, that controls the automatic climate control, telephone functionality, the sat nav, and obviously the stereo. Unfortunately, this doesn't connect to your mobile for kind of Bluetooth tethering and audio, but it does have, do you remember this, when cars have a little hard drive? So I can burn CDs basically to a hard drive, and it stores up to, I think it's about 100 tunes or something like that. So yeah, that's not all bad. Another quirk I've noticed with this system is there is no sync button to sync up the driver and passenger temperature, so that's quite annoying. I realised to actually do that, you need to go into a sub menu and then manually kind of twiddle the kind of control and resync it up, but then as soon as the passenger changes the temperature, it's unsynced again. So that's a bit of a missing oddity there, really. On the other hand, there are buttons to things you'll never ever need. Like up here, you can actually move this screen up and down, which, you know, it's a nice feature, and it must have cost a lot of money. I mean, there's a motor behind the screen, but I could kind of understand it if it kind of went side to side a little bit to angle it more towards the driver, but it just goes up and down, and it's like, who drives like that? Not a lot of people, really. I don't understand that. What are my future plans with this car? Not a lot, really. Just look after it, really. It's always a good idea to keep on top of the maintenance of these, because it is they're one of those cars that if you let something slip, you know, the list will just keep building if you don't sort it out right away. So yeah, look after it. I'd quite like to put some Michelins on it, which might go some way to sorting out the ride a little bit, maybe. I'm not saying that will make it infinitely better, but this car was designed for Michelin premises. So yeah, I might get some Primacy 4s or cross climates on it. The driver's door mirror, that's the only thing in 2,000-ish miles that has gone a bit AWOL really. I kind of knew about it before I bought it, but it has a mind of its own really. So I shall have to hunt one of those down if I can. That's the other thing to bear in mind if you are looking at a C6. There's a lot of things now, like running a DS is easier than it is running this in some ways, just because if you need an obscure part, there's no support from Citroen, and everything's either second-hand or unobtainable, really. Luckily, there are some great specialists in the UK. I know this car was looked after by BL Autos. There's a few others too. So, yeah, if you're after one of these, it's good to get in with one of those guys, really, and just maintain contact for as and when you need that obscure bit. As I said, this is a fantastic motorway cruiser. I'm not really showing it in its best light here, just cruising around the outskirts of Buxton. But yeah, next year, hopefully, might take it to France once or twice, because that's really is where this car feels at home. Not just the kind of country, but those kind of long motorway sessions. So yeah. Oh, and it's on a Northern Irish number plate too, which I'd quite like to change, just because I don't really like driving around with a Northern Irish plate. Maybe that's just me being a bit weird, but yeah. Anyway, thank you very much for watching, guys. I hope I've not completely bored you to tears. Like I said, this wasn't a full review. This wasn't, you know, buyer's guide or anything like that. Just thought I'd try something different, really. So, yeah, if you like the video, I'll have a think about doing another, maybe walk around the car and show the differences maybe between a 2.2 C6 and the other models, because yeah, there are some. So yeah, I'll probably make a tedious video like that. But yeah, cheers for watching, guys. See you in a bit.